Welcome everyone to the video version of Tales from the Jar Side, my weekly newsletter. Don't have time to read the regular newsletter? That's fine, I'll read it to you, along with other jokes and comments and director's cut type information. Let's jump right in. So here's this week's newsletter, hosted at kencousin.substack.com. It's called Tales from the Jar Side, a Mockito video, which is going to be a running theme this week. We wait. YouTube Shorts, silly certificates for silly accomplishments. Some people just hate mocks. We'll get into that. AI tools for developers, and the usual assortment of silly tweets and toots. The subtitle is, Me, did you hear that old McDonald's farm has been taken over by artificial intelligence? My wife, AI? Me, AI. Her, oh. AI, AIO. Oh, gee, I totally forgot. Instant rim shot. There we go. Okay. Welcome, fellow jarheads, to Tales from the Jar Side, the Cousin IT newsletter for the week of, and I can't believe it, I forgot to change the week again. So clearly this is the week June 4th through June 11th, 2023. Today is Monday, June 12th, so as usual, I'm recording the newsletter the day after it came out. This week I taught my functional Java course, my new features in Java course, whatever they call it now, and the second week of my Spring and Spring Boot in 3 weeks courses, all on the O'Reilly Learning Platform. Regular readers of and listeners to, and of course video viewers of this channel are affectionately known as jarheads, and are far more intelligent, sophisticated, and attractive than the average newsletter reader or listener or viewer. If you wish to become a jarhead, please subscribe using the button on the Substack site. However, let's also take a look at the YouTube channel for our weekly update. Here is the weekly update. Let me do a refresh to make sure I'm looking at the current version. And I believe we are up to 368 subscribers now. So, progress. Okay. This week, the big video I put out was on Mockito's inOrder method. And of course, without getting into too much of the technical detail, there's a story here. I published one video on using the inOrder method inside Mockito, and the purpose of the inOrder method is to verify that when you're testing a class that has dependencies, the methods in the dependencies are invoked the right number of times with the right arguments, but also in the right order. Easy enough. So I wanted to make this video, and in order to do that, I wanted to use some good examples. Now, I have some examples in my Mockito Made Clear book, but they kind of tie into a bunch of other examples as well. I kind of leveraged the same relatively small set of bigger examples to show all the different features of Mockito. So I wanted to do something kind of, I don't want to say isolated exactly, but self-contained, something that I could use by itself. So I figured, what do we do these days? We go to ChatGPT. So I went to ChatGPT, GPT-4 specifically, and I asked it, I said, I need an example to illustrate Mockito's inOrder method. You got something in mind? And let me just show you very quickly the basic code. Here I'm in IntelliJ, and this has all been added to the GitHub repository for the Mockito Made Clear book. And it suggested a payment processor. You see that as an interface that has two methods, authorize payment and capture payment, and that's it. And then it said, let's use a payment service. And the idea behind the payment service is that it will have a dependency on that processor, and the process payment method needs to check that authorized payment with an amount returns true before you invoke capture payment. So that's the idea. You are trying to make sure that authorized payment was called first, and then you call capture payment. I said, okay, that sounds good. Let's look at the test. And the test looks like this. Here's my process payment test. It says, let's create a mock object around that payment processor, and then we'll set our expectations so we don't have to implement the payment processor. When we call authorized payment with any double, return true. When we call capture payment, return true. So that's fine. The processor doesn't need to be implemented because we're not testing the processor. We're testing the process payment method in the service, which we instantiate with the processor inside. And here is where we use the inOrder method. The inOrder method wraps around the mock, and then we could verify that authorized payment was called with any double first, and then capture payment was called with any processor. And it works just fine. So then I went back to ChatGPT and I said, all right, the thing about inOrder is that its argument in general, the method argument is 0 or more mocks. Give me an example with multiple mocks in there. And it said, oh, okay. So it threw in a shipping service to ship products to an address, and then came up with this order service, which depends on both the payment service we just looked at and a shipping service. And I put in a constructor to inject them in, and here's my process order method. And now I want to verify that process payment on the payment service was invoked before ship product on the shipping service. They're both invoked in that order. So looking at the test class for this one, now this time I used the Mockito JUnit 5 extension. So I have the extension here, which means I can mock these two attributes and Mockito will instantiate them for me, and it will inject them into the order service. So I can just, in my test, start right off by setting my expectations that both of those methods will return true when invoked properly. So here I call the process order method with 100 and good old 1313 Mockingbird Lane, New York, New York. I wonder if anybody will catch that little Easter egg. That's where the Munsters lived, believe it or not. So, I mean, it's another roll your eyes and give me an okay boomer. I get that, but still. So at any rate, when I used inOrder with both mocks, I could verify that process payment was called on the payment service and then ship product on the shipping service. And everything does work. And for more detail and all the extra explanations and everything, that's what's in the video. I do kind of like the thumbnail too, by the way. I use Canva and I like the purple gradient. I like the fonts and everything. I think that worked out kind of nicely. So at any rate, take a look if you want. If not, that's fine. I basically gave you the idea. The story again is that I used ChatGPT in order to come up with the example. And I was very pleased with the example it came up with. I kind of wish that I'd had that tool available when I was writing the book, because I might have cleaned up some of the examples I provided. I mean, the examples I provided, I think, work, but I would have liked them to be a little bit more to the point, maybe. So, anyway, let's go on to our next section. I made several YouTube shorts this week. I watched a video on YouTube. I'm always trying to learn how to grow the channel and everything. And this video was suggesting that YouTube shorts are a good way to grow your subscriber count. I mean, it's not a good way to get monetized. To get monetized with YouTube shorts, I think you need something absurd, like 10 million views within 90 days. And then the pay rate for shorts is horrible. It's absolutely terrible. So the only reason you'd make shorts is because you can leverage them to encourage people to watch the long form videos. Now, I didn't go all out and put like links to the long form videos in the shorts, but hey, I'm still learning. I'm experimenting. I made a couple for Mockito. I made one called Additional Answers, when your Mockito answers back. My son kind of liked that one. Code that reassures, assert does not throw in JUnit 5. So that was the first of my JUnit 5 series. I'll have more on those. Are mocks bad? Which was trying to address an issue that came up later in the week, but not on this short, interestingly enough. And then finally, Mockito, where the version doesn't matter. I think I should have called it where the versions don't matter, to keep in the pattern from whose line is it anyway, where the points don't matter, etc. So on the channel, those are all listed down here. In addition, I think, oh, wait a minute, here. Those are 3 of them. I put out a new one. Here's the 4th one, the Additional Answers one. Or you can always go directly to the Shorts feed and see them all there. And you see I've started to build up a bit of a library of shorts as well. So progress, you can see the number of views there and getting there. Again, I don't really have a great sense of what's good or bad on these numbers, but I know what we have. Next, I made a QR code. It turns out that in the Canva tool, there is an app inside it called QR code. And all you have to do is say, yeah, I'm going to make one, and it wants to know the URL. So I put in the URL for the Tales for the Jarside YouTube channel, and this is now my QR code that I could add to, say, slides during presentations, or my website. Maybe it would be a good idea to do that, or anywhere else. I haven't used it anywhere yet, but there it is, and that should be fun. I should mention one more thing about the YouTube channel before I move on, and that is I have scheduled a new live stream for this Wednesday. I'll be talking to Nate Shuda, who is one of my favorite speakers on the tour, on the No Fluff Just Stuff tour, which I'm also a member of. I think he does a wonderful job. I'm really looking forward to speaking to him, and he's been a friend for many, many years. So he is a developer advocate and an architect. He's described his job title as architect as a service, which the more about software you know, the funnier that gag is. So I really like that one. That will be this Wednesday, June 14th at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So that's Eastern Daylight Time. That's what we're on. Look for more posts about that as we get closer. And then next week I'll report on it in the newsletter. I made one additional short that I wasn't planning to make. This one was called Silly Certificates for Silly Accomplishments. It was occurring to me that on some of my videos, it might be nice to put like something in the background that might be kind of a running gag or whatever. So I made a series of certificates that were just jokes for everyday accomplishments or what have you. And I was going to use them in one of my videos this week. And then I realized that the video I was planning to use them in is a short, and therefore there's no room to put these certificates in there. So I posted them as a carousel on LinkedIn, which I hadn't done before, and I thought, well, that was okay. And I found eventually on Sunday after writing the newsletter, or before writing the newsletter, I think while I was working on it, I packaged them into a short. It looks roughly like this. Let me give you an idea. Well, I'll go over and show it to you on the site here. This is the one. Survived a case of the Mondays, and wrote a book without ChatGPT, wrote test cases first and watched them fail, and on and on. It's only a minute long, but I did post that, and that was fun. So that was just purely for entertainment value. We'll see how many people actually watch it. Now, this is the point when I got to the issue that I'd been stalling about. I knew this was going to happen. I just didn't know when. What happened this week is I got a comment on one of my YouTube videos, and I got several comments in LinkedIn of all places. Before I jumped into this YouTube channel stuff, I never really considered LinkedIn to be a major site for me, but it's been far more active than I expected. The comment, when I pasted it in here, looked awfully small, so I copied it and put it out here. And the comment said on one of my Mockito videos, testing implementation details is an anti-pattern that produces maintenance woes. Test behavior. Oh, and ditch your mocking framework to reduce cognitive load. F, mastering a mocking framework. Master writing good DI object-oriented code, and you'll find it faster and dead simple to write fakes. Now, this bothered me for several reasons, one of which is I've already addressed those issues. I mean, in the book, in other videos, on blog posts, on Medium posts. I mean, it's not like I didn't know that some people have these objections, and I brought them up ahead of time and mentioned them, and this person obviously was not aware of those or didn't care. Also, the video he posted this on was about Mockito's inOrder method that had nothing to do with the topics he's talking about. Yes, I'm using a couple of mocks, but the purpose of mocks there was to help you diagnose a problem in isolation, was to find out, is my class that I'm testing doing the right thing at the right time? And in terms of DI frameworks, I use the Spring framework all the time. Yeah, I haven't done too many videos on mocking in Spring, but I will. I'll get there. In other words, let me say here's what the real problem is. There is a baseline of Java developers and probably others in other fields who just really despises the whole idea of mocks, stubs, and spies. They don't like mocking frameworks at all. Now, these are the people who tend to highlight that you did a bunch of unit tests that all passed, but the integration test failed. To which I always reply, who said not to do an integration test? Of course you want to test everything together. Again, the example I like to give is if I get in my car and I drive to my destination and I get there, we're good. That was a full-scale integration test. But if I break down and I get towed to a mechanic, what the mechanic's going to do is try to progressively isolate individual subsystems to find out where the problem is. And that's what mocks allow you to do. They allow you to isolate individual classes and systems and find out where the problem is. In fact, back to the YouTube channel, that's what the Are Mocks Bad video is all about. That's what I talk about. And yet here I get this comment. Well, all right, not a surprise. And there's no reason to assume that anybody watches any of my videos anyway. But I tried answering it. And of course, the answer just encouraged him to attack again. And you could take a look at it if you want, but I didn't follow up on that. Now, on LinkedIn, of all places, when I put in my inOrder method, you'll see that I got 19 comments. Now, a couple of them are mine, but that's a huge number for me. That's a lot of comments for me. And they're all of the order of don't use mocking frameworks. They're terrible. I mean, no, a test is not supposed to verify that the system under test is interacting with dependencies in the right order. It's supposed to verify the outcome. It's like, again, objecting to the whole philosophy of why are you doing this? You're over-specifying in your tests. You're restricting the implementation. Mocks are a bad idea in general. Again, if you want to read it, be my guest, but I eventually just backed out of the discussion because it wasn't going anywhere. Well, the reason I want to respond at all is for the people who are following the comments without, knowing what the issues are. I'm not trying to change the mind of the people making those comments. They've made up their minds. I still believe that mocks are useful as a way to diagnose problems in isolation. But let's come back to that. The truth is, and I've known this for a long time, a small but highly vocal minority of the developer community simply hates mocking frameworks and thinks the whole thing is a mistake. Now, that's a tough community to be there when you're writing a book on a mocking framework, when I'm trying to persuade people that this is good. There's no arguing with them, and I'm not going to try to persuade them, but it's a problem, and suddenly it feels like, again, trying to sell my book is pushing the boulder up the mountain, the nice Sisyphus analogy. So what am I going to do now? I mean, I'm a little surprised, actually, that I lasted this long before that community seems to have found any of my posts. Does this mean they're going to comment like that on all of my posts? I don't know. I won't know until I put up the next one. Now, I published another short, but it had nothing to do with Mockito, so maybe that's okay. Again, here's my philosophy. I'm not necessarily advocating for mocking frameworks. I'm certainly not advocating for only using a mocking framework. However, if you're going to use one, you need to know how to use it properly. That's my idea, is that when I was teaching classes in this stuff, I kept encountering too many people who didn't understand what they were for or how they were meant to be used. Let me show you how they were designed, what problems they solve, how they make your life easier, and then you decide whether or not to use them. The old story that I didn't bring up here because I was already running long, the old story that occurred to me was back when they came up with the Java Server Pages template library. They came up with a library to work with JSPs. And one of the elements in that library, one of the sub-libraries, had some elements in it that did things that everybody knew were a bad practice. I'll look it up and give you the actual details later. And the question came up to them, why are you doing this? As I recall, it had to do with the ability to talk to the database directly from the view. And this is known to be an architectural issue. It makes for maintenance problems. And people said to the library developers, why are you providing this? You know this is a bad idea. And the developers replied, everybody wanted it. Who are we to tell them they can't have it? It's not our job to teach them the best practice. It's our job to give them what they're interested in. Now, I'm not going that far. I don't want to encourage people to do the wrong thing. But I don't actually think mocks are the wrong thing. I think that if you're going to use them, you need to know the right way to use them. You need to know how to use them in a way that will help you rather than hurt you. But again, I don't want to make that argument over and over and over again every time I get a comment, so we'll see how that works out in the future. Again, I have a couple videos that are already out there, how Mockito mocks help, and one called Why Use Mockito at All, that have a lot of these detailed explanations in them. We'll see. Maybe I'll just start putting links to those and we'll go on. It was stressful for me as my bottom line. I had difficulty, even though I knew this was coming. It was tough for me to see that. I was a little sorry about it. And I made this comment at the bottom. I suppose the best consolation I have is the knowledge that, well, at least on YouTube, nobody reads the comments. Don't make too big a deal out of this. All I can say is that if I were a woman or an underrepresented minority, I'd be dealing with all this garbage from day one with a lot less of actual arguing in good faith going on. These people at least are arguing in good faith. They're just not listening to me. But I mean, I don't know how I would handle that. This is at least my first pushback. I'm doing the best I can. Let's talk a bit about GitHub Copilot and other AI tools now. I jumped into GitHub Copilot during the trial period when it was free, and when they moved to the subscription model, I did in fact subscribe. And I use that in IntelliJ as part of the plugins all the time. It's very, very useful for me. I discovered that I've been using let me say that again. I decided that it's time for me to start sharing the information I've been learning about not just GitHub Copilot, but ChatGPT and some of the other AI-based tools like Bard and others, to try to see how they could work with developers. And I'm always looking for new talks for the No Fluff Just Stuff tour. So I happened to be talking to Jay Zimmerman, or actually I sent him an email a while ago saying I'm proposing a new talk for the tour around that information. I'd be happy to do a lunch and learn on it or something like that. And he finally got back to me and said, oh yeah, let's do this. So we talked about the idea, and now I'll have a new talk at UberConf. Here's UberConf. I think I have a link to it here. UberConf is in July in Denver, so that's only about a month away. And I don't know if it's on the schedule yet for my day there. I'm pretty sure the talk is it at the end of the day? Actually, it might be the end of the day on Wednesday. Let's look for my name there. That ought to do it. Yeah, there it is. Practical AI tools for Java developers. And we'll talk about GitHub Copilot and ChatGPT and many of these others. So now it's on the schedule there. And once it's on the schedule there, it'll be on the calendar for future No Fluff events. And I'll eventually turn it into a half-day course, one of those virtual workshops. I still think I need to run through the talk a couple times to get the feel for what content we need and what workshops to do. And then I'll bring it onto the actual list, on the virtual workshops list. One of the things I discovered that I did not know, two things I discovered actually I should mention. One is that as much as I love IntelliJ IDEA, it's VS Code, it's Visual Studio Code that has much better integration with both GitHub Copilot and the follow-on project known as GitHub Copilot X, the future of, well, that's, what did they say actually? It's our vision for the future of AI-powered software development. And this is actually integrated in as an extension to VS Code, but IntelliJ IDEA doesn't have it at all. And there are many different, where's the list of plugins down here? I don't see it at the moment, but there's a whole bunch of potential projects they're working on that will give you new features and new capabilities inside there. I'm building up this stuff. I played around with it a little bit. I actually added, for example, as a trivial example, in my Mockito book repository, I added a GitHub action called Create Diagram. It's a GitHub Copilot X project called a repo visualizer. And by adding this action and modifying the README to include the diagram, if you were to go there, so here is my repository now for the book, you see this thing. This is the visualization. Oops, I tried to magnify it, and yeah, it's as big as I can get it right now. It shows source, test, and then Java and my packages and main and my packages and the Maven wrapper and Gradle and other features. And it's trying to give a visualization of the overall structure of the code, which was all generated by that GitHub action at diagram.yaml, the one I was demonstrating. So again, this is the sort of thing that an AI tool can generate on your behalf. And I'll be mentioning that during the talk and going forward. In the meantime, I'll have to learn more about VS Code, which I only use mostly as a simple text editor. I'm going to have to get better at that. Let's move on to the tweets and toots this week. Okay, I started off with this idea of lunch, dinner, supper, afternoon tea. This was good old Pippin saying, we've had one, yes. What about second indictment? Yeah, you know where that's going. So I was just going to leave it at that, but then I had to include this little toot that said, sorry, can't. The wife and I are redecorating the bathroom this weekend. We're going with postmodern document box. It's all the rage. So you know what image that is that's been going around all over the internet. And then this one, which said, my boyfriend said if Trump is indicted, so that's the day before the indictment came out, he might need to take the day off to see the doctor about an erection lasting for more than 4 hours. Yes. Okay, wait a minute. There we go. Okay. So this was really funny. I can try to play it here. Let's see if it works. Oh, it was on Twitter. So here, I'll show you. I should probably kill the sound so that I don't do any kind of copyright strike. So I'll hit play and then I'll kill the sound. There. So I got rid of the sound and you could see there it is, locking up the ARC inside the box. And then of course they're going to wheel it into the warehouse, but no, it's in the bathroom at Mar-a-Lago, etc. So that's the gag. And if you were unable to watch the video, that's it. It was 20 seconds, just showing that. I thought that was really funny. So, okay. This one, of course, had Boris and Natasha from Rocky and Bullwinkle saying, fearless leader, I'm not lying. Bathroom is filled with secret documents. Yes. All right, enough of that. The next one was about the, quote, merger with the PGA Tour, with the LIV Tour, whatever that acronym stands for, I forget. And it's all about the money. In case you're not aware, the Saudis have been trying to do what they call sports washing. There you go. Which is basically to buy their way into a better reputation by getting involved in the sports world. I mean, it's a ruthless dictatorship which has virtually no rights for anyone and zero rights for women, of course, or trans or LGBTQ people. It'd just be ridiculous to go there. And they want everybody to think well of them, so they are purchasing more and more sports teams and events, and they founded an entire golf league a little while ago that declared war on the PGA. They signed a bunch of high-profile golfers. They gave them tens or hundreds of millions of dollars, and some people just couldn't turn down the money. And the PGA declared war on them, basically, completely hostile and antagonistic. And what happened this week that was so shocking is the PGA Tour suddenly agreed to an alliance, which sounds like an alliance, but it's really selling the tour to the Saudis because they're going to be the ones who run everything. It's like, really? And especially the golfers who were good soldiers for the PGA and turned down a lot of those, multi-million dollar offers are really upset because they could have taken them. I mean, why didn't they? And here's what happened. The best tweet I saw about this, by the way, was this one. It said, as part of the merger, the PGA will control holes 1 through 8 and 12 through 18. The Saudis do 9/11. Yes, don't they? They most certainly do. Kind of says it all. It's such an incredible sellout, but we'll see if it happens. I mean, the pushback has been enormous. Even Tiger Woods got stiffed in all this, and we'll see how that plays out. The next tweet involved Apple's new Vision Pro headset. By all accounts, it's incredible experience, absolutely outstanding, and nowhere near ready for prime time, but definitely the future. Definitely had the resolution and the interactivity and the abilities that we want in the eventual product that everybody will use. This tweet was great. It said, why should we fear to use it, Gandalf? And it's, of course, Saruman. Instead of talking about the Palantir, he's got the Vision Pro on instead. So I'm thinking the reasons we fear to use it are, well, the lousy battery life is one, the weight on your head, and of course the fact it costs $3,500 when it even comes out early next year. But by all accounts, it's the future. It's going to be great. It's just going to take a while to come out. And Mark Zuckerberg, of course, criticized it. But then again, he's the guy who bet on AR and VR so much that he changed the name of his company from Facebook to Meta. He's betting on the metaverse. And Apple basically just said, yeah, well, you got your little Oculus stuff, which they bought, of course. And look at this. Now, of course, the price is 7 times what it costs to get an Oculus. But I don't believe anything Zuckerberg says anyway. I mean, why would you? Has no ethics whatsoever and just wants to sell his product. Not that I believe Apple either. I mean, they're all basically evil and not a surprise. We kind of know that. But let's see how it plays out in the future. I like the gag, though. This one was an image inside of a tweet, and I couldn't find the source, so I just grabbed the image. Explains a lot. Oh, crap. Was that today? The dinosaurs there, presumably generic dinosaurs, missed Noah's Ark. Yes, well. Okay. This one said, so I set up my new Alexa to respond to computer, ... I didn't think about it until I turned on Star Trek, and halfway through the episode, my house fired a spread of photon torpedoes into our neighbor's garage. This notice to say sorry again about your truck, Kevin. Right. Yeah, maybe don't do that. I like this image with the alien sticking out its whatever internal alien tongue and getting caught on the frozen pole. And the caption to that one said, there's always one guy in every species. Yeah, okay. I thought it was funny. And this was a classic. This was a toot on Mastodon. I linked this to the original post so you can see yourself. It is an embedded video that's a mashup of All Star by Smash Mouth and Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley, syncing perfectly. Here's the video itself. I'll just play a moment of it just to give you an idea. So you can see they're both in there. Again, I don't want to wind up with this video or whatever getting prohibited from YouTube or whatever, but there it is. If you feel like watching it, it's kind of like watching a train wreck. It's hard to look away, but somebody spent a lot of time on this. Again, do 2 wrongs make a right? I leave it to you. As a reminder, you can see all my upcoming training courses on the O'Reilly Learning Platform at this link right here, which has everything going on. There's the Spring and Spring Boot in 3 weeks course. This week will be week 3 on that. I've also got the Mockito class and the Hamcrest matchers, although I'm really going to use a Cert J on that. That one is 2 days from now. So that's this week on the O'Reilly Learning Platform. I also have... Oh, I think I put up the wrong link. Functional programming in Java, I actually believe is... Oh, that was last week. This week, I'm doing modern Java functional programming with streams, lambdas, and method references as a no fluff, just stuff virtual workshop. That's tomorrow. Right. No, I did put it up correctly down here. I just don't have the link on it for some reason. So that's everything this week. Hope you found it interesting. If you enjoy this content, please subscribe, and I'm encouraged to make more. And I will talk to everybody next week. Take care.